All right, welcome, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to take their brands to the next level. My name is Junior Frederick. I am your host, and I have with me Mr. Bobby Stealth. And today we're going to be getting into some interesting conversation around building your brand. If you are tuned in live, go ahead and put your flames in the comments. And I see a couple coming in. And also, let us know where you're listening in from. Bobby, what's up?
Not much, Junior, not much at all. I've been thinking about transitions. I've been thinking about business. I've been thinking about a lot of things recently because you guys know I just turned a new year, and every year you get a little bit older, you start to see things a little bit differently. So as I woke up this morning, it was a it was a conversation with myself about transitioning, letting go, and diving into the next thing. So I'm excited about this morning's topic because it's definitely surrounding around some of the appearances of business versus some of the actualities of business. So I'm excited for us to dive into the topic once we actually reveal that to you guys. But overall, I'm feeling good, Junior. I'm transitioning certainly. I'm transitioning certainly. I've had to take rest more seriously. And since I've had to take rest more seriously, now I'm trying to figure out this new world where I'm actually sleeping. It's very interesting, but it's good. It's fun.
Yeah, rest is a very interesting thing. Um, my my personality says so, guys. I'm the kind of guy that says you don't need no rest. I'll rest later. I'll
Right.
rest when I'm done. But as we've learned in the past, rest is actually a key component to success. So Bobby, I'm looking to hear like your take on it, and I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about that because I've definitely been down that road where you're working 14, 16, and sometimes when you need to 18-hour days, right? Sometimes when you absolutely need to, you do that much. But I'm interested to learn more about what you have to say about it and also get some opinions coming from the audience, right?
Yeah.
So guys, we're gonna go to a quick break, literally like 60 seconds. Stay tuned. When we come back, we're gonna introduce the topic and we're gonna get right into it. Stay tuned.
There's slow growth and then there's scale. There's incremental growth and then there's exponential growth. What I want to talk to you about is adding a zero to you and experiencing exponential scale. Incremental growth says 1 plus 1 is 2. Exponential growth says 1 plus 0 is 10. Incremental growth says 2 plus 2 is 4. Exponential growth says 5 plus 0 is 50. Guys, listen, when you add a zero to you, you can add a zero to the marketplace. You can add a zero to the value that you bring. So you can add a zero to your family, add a zero to your legacy. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about incremental, we're talking about exponential. I always say that business is a spiritual game. Just imagine when you combine your skills, your values, your abilities, your talents to something bigger than you, something greater than you, something like the power of exponential. That is adding a zero. Add a zero to your competence, add a zero to your confidence. This is about adding a zero in your life, your value, your industry, and your mission. Let's grow.
All right, guys. So welcome back to Breakfast with the Brand. Bobby, let's dive right in. What's the
Yeah.
topic for today?
Topic for today is what business looks like versus what it actually is. So many of our audience is getting into business. They're transitioning from the 9 to 5 workforce. They are extremely talented, extremely educated, and they're trying to figure out how to make this transition. And the best way to make this transition is understanding what business actually is versus what it looks like. So let's dive a little bit into what it looks like. Well, it looks like when you leave your 9 to 5, you have more freedom immediately. You can do what you want, who you want, when you want, and you've got a lot of money, right? Because you finally cut out the middleman. And the reality is the exact opposite is true. in many cases. So actually, when you leave the 9 to 5, what tends to happen is you're working more hours than you did when you were working 8-hour days. You're actually bringing home less money because in the W-2 world, you're paid first because you're one of the employees of the company. So you're an operational expense. They don't pay you, they don't have labor. But in the business, well, you're not that important. Now, of course, you're very important, but you're not important in the sense that the business pays you first. The business actually pays the owners last. So one of the things that business looks like is freedom and money immediately. Not true. Another thing that business looks like is 24-hour days, working, and never taking any time off. A lot of people that are making the transition from the 9 to 5 oftentimes keep that mentality way too long. A good business, a real business, is a system. And the system should be working way harder than you are. If you're working harder than your system is, then that means the system's probably not in place at all, or it's not working very well. So that's another what it looks like versus what it is. It looks like an entrepreneur is turning and burning and turning and burning and working and working. But some of the best entrepreneurs, much like Jeff Bezos says, they're spending majority of their time thinking, really thinking. They're sitting down in rooms with very intelligent people and they're thinking and making decisions. And they're allowing their system to operate based on the decisions that they make. So that's the premise that we're going to dive into, because the goal is to really help create or remove the veil, remove the veil of entrepreneurship and give you a real view into what it really looks like, what it really feels like, what it really requires, and some of the stepping stones and milestones that you want to hit to transition through your entrepreneurial experience with a lot of fun. So we started talking about rest. So one of the things that we hear as entrepreneurs is what Junior said: who needs sleep? I don't. Get it when I'm dead. Like we hear little things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my perspective on rest, my evolved perspective, because when I first left the workforce, and I was a United States Marine, so the military is a lot like the entrepreneurial space in the sense that the enemy never sleeps. Someone is always trying to hack us. Someone's always trying to get in. Somebody's always trying to figure how they're going to take our country's resources. Like that's globally though. And that's business. Like everybody's trying to figure out how are we going to control the market we have and expand it if necessary. So the Marines and the military is very similar to business. So in the military, we would have things called duty. And on your duty days, you would work 24 hours, period, like once a month, sometimes twice a month. And that was to train us and keep us ready to go 24 hours straight any given Sunday, right? So with that being said, I took that, but I took that mentality into business. Fast forward a little bit, what I learned about rest is that if you don't decompress, you'll often make a mess. If you don't decompress, you'll often make a mess, meaning you'll be going, and then you'll get to a point where your thinking has reached it's reached a point that's no longer effective. But if you keep thinking in this way and you keep executing according to whatever thinking it is, you're going to start going backwards. So what rest does is it allows you to decompress. And what decompression allows for is for a re-engagement with fresh eyes or with a new perspective or with a different approach. All of those things are necessary for achieving optimal results. So as I pass it to Junior, that's kind of one, what we're going to be talking about today, and two, my perspective on rest.
Yeah, I think the appearance of entrepreneurship is a very interesting thing. And funny enough, Bobby, I was actually studying this morning. So, my studies this morning was not only sales, but I was also revising copywriting, which is marketing. And in marketing, there's something called the persuasion cycle. So in the persuasion cycle, you start by you grab somebody's attention, So that's where it gets started. So if you want to persuade someone, there's certain things that you have to do. So number one, you have to grab their attention. Okay. Now, the way that you grab people's attention, funny enough, is with a lot of the things that you're talking about. But you grab attention, you create curiosity, you highlight a problem, you introduce a solution, you provide a call to action, and it sort of goes around in that cycle. But when you dive deeper into the persuasion cycle, some of what you see, and this is like a lot of what you see in marketing, in entrepreneurship, etc., etc. When we look at the image of entrepreneurship, some of that has to do with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you understand like that sort of that model, you know that somewhere to the base of that, you have different physical needs. So you have the need for food, the need for relationships, the need, for security, stuff like that. Now, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because most of us that come into entrepreneurship, the reason we came into entrepreneurship, like the whole reason I wanted to get into business was because I felt like it seems as if like all of the business owners were the ones that had freedom. Because that's what they portray. Like that's what we see. So we see something we want. Like on that scale, and what makes entrepreneurship so attractive is the fact that it carries a lot of the sort of psychological needs on that hierarchy. So it carries status, it carries security, it carries food, shelter, clothing, it carries relationships, it carries self-actualization. Like there's so many parts of it. But what we don't see, like you were saying, is we don't see the hard work or the fact that if something comes tumbling down, it comes tumbling down on you.
That's
Or the
right.
fact that you really have no safety net. Or the fact that like your money is not guaranteed. Like if you don't close, you don't eat. Like nobody says that.
Mhm.
Nobody says that. So there's a big difference between the look or the aesthetic or the appeal of entrepreneurship and like what it actually is.
Yeah.
What it actually is. So
And really quickly, Junior, I'd love to put a note in there to kind of help bridge the conversation even further. One of the things that I've noticed is that everything is risky, you know? So I think one of the reasons entrepreneurship got so got so exciting at some point was because people started to come to the realization that I don't really have a safety net at work. Like they started getting laid off. Like COVID-19, I think, is what really helped entrepreneurship take off because people realized that they didn't have a safety net at work either. So that's just one thing I wanted to put in. It seemed like you still have more thought that you were working on there. But yeah, guys, that safety net piece crucial. Just wanted to hit on that.
yeah. I was telling somebody the other day, COVID-19 really and truly brought about the concept of meaningful work. So it's like if the world is gonna crash, why don't I do something that I can find purpose from or meaning from? So you find a lot of people they didn't want to go to work for money. They wanted to work for purpose and for meaning. They wanted to have meaning attached with that money. And that's like one of those big things that experience, that global experience sort of taught us, right? Now, what I was saying is that the appearance of entrepreneurship is appealing because it appeals or it touches on all of those needs that I just mentioned. So status, like the people that have the best status or the highest status in our society are all entrepreneurs. Well, most of them anyways. So you have politicians, you have entrepreneurs, right? So they have the highest status. Now, as human beings, we want status, whether we choose to recognize it or not. On some level, we want some kind of status. If you're in a relationship, you want status. You want to know that I'm the one, like I'm the only one, right? So I'm the big guy, or I'm this person, or I mean this to that person, and I'm more special to him or to her than everybody else. So there's a certain status that you're looking for, and entrepreneurship sort of hits all of those things, which is why what makes it so attractive. Now, the reality of it is, in my opinion, like you have to be a pretty special, not special in a sense that everybody's not special, but in a sense that you have to be different to pursue entrepreneurship. Because you have to like know, like, okay, I'm taking a huge risk that may or may not work out, and then you have to be okay with that either way. You have to be okay with knowing that, hey, if I don't close, I don't eat. You have to be sort of excited by that. Like the best entrepreneurs, they feel a sense of excitement. Like you tell somebody, there are different kinds of people, Bobby. So there are people that like they're scared to hunt, and there are people that hunt just to hunt. So you tell an entrepreneur, hey, you could make as much money as you want, but if you don't close, you don't eat, like there's no salary, per se, they get excited. If you
Mm,
tell somebody that doesn't have that mindset that, hey, your salary is not guaranteed, they get scared. Like they're not cool with that,
that's
right? So you have to be a different kind of person to really and truly get into it.
mm. You know, one thing that I'm thinking, Junior, is about the process of becoming an entrepreneur. So another reason I think you want to be a special type of person is because it's, I'm gonna just be honest, it's hard, right? Everything is hard, right? So choose your hard. And entrepreneurship is just like everything else. Rising to the top in your industry is hard in business. Rising to the top academically is hard. It's all hard. But one thing that's hard about entrepreneurship is the fact that many people that you care about are alienated often in your process. That's, I think, is one of the toughest things for entrepreneurs to handle. So when people are passing away, it's like, what do? You keep working. What? Yeah, that's what you do. You keep working. That's hard for a lot of people. Well, your wife doesn't understand and she thinks you're spending more money than you should. She comes from a 9 to 5 home where her dad worked, her mom worked, dual incomes, and she feels like you are tearing the family apart and you have to keep building. Because if you stop, everything that you've invested in up until now it's it becomes a sunk cost. It becomes something that it's like you've wasted all of this time and energy and money if you stop. So you got to keep going, despite how the people that love you feel about what you do. And on top of all of that, you're changing a lot and fast. Entrepreneurs are thrown into a learning curve, and the learning curve is exponential. So they're trying to retrain their brains, one, from everything that they've learned that's trained them to be employees, two, to learning how to operate a system that they're building in real time, three, while keeping everything paid and not having them not losing their shirt. So when you're doing all of these things, learning, training, building, and changing simultaneously without the support of your loved ones, it seems very lonely. And that's why people say it's lonely at the top. That's why they say it's a lonely road, not because it's not a lot of us. There's plenty of people that make money. There's plenty of people that are in business. One of the reasons we say it's lonely, it's a lonely road and it's a lonely at the top, is because the higher you climb, the less understood you become. And the less understood you become, the less people you have to talk to, the less people you can relate to, the less people you can have a relationship with that goes deeper than what you give them. Because a lot of entrepreneurs have relationships with people, but it's because they are supporting those people. So you may have a relationship with your spouse primarily because you support your spouse. You may have a relationship with family members primarily because you pay a portion of their bills. But those relationships seem to be founded not only on who you are as a person, but what you do for them. And that can make the relationship a bit superficial, or at least feel that way. They can genuinely love you, but it's very hard to feel as if it's completely genuine if you feel like you're giving so much in the economic space. So you're pretty much forced to be friends with other entrepreneurs other people that are making money that you don't have to give money to in order to finally feel like it's a genuine relationship where they don't want you for one, your money, and two, they understand you because they've been where you are, and three, you guys can share humor, share struggle, and share dream and vision. Like I think that's a part of what entrepreneurship, or rather I'll say it this way, that's a part of entrepreneurship that is rarely understood from the onset. When people are getting started, they think that their family's going to love them, their family's going to support them, that the money's going to come rolling in, that they're going to have plenty of people that are rooting for them, and that normally lasts for maybe 3 months.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, baby, go. You got it. Do it. I love you. You're great. Everything's going to be all right. We got your back. And then the money starts to trickle away. Then the savings start to get depleted. Then you start changing and becoming a more aggressive, assertive person. And now they're, what? Who are you? What is this? You're becoming who you have to be in order to win. And that becoming rarely is a slow process. Like it feels slow to you because you're the one going through it and you're the one suffering, so to speak, and experiencing all of these things. But to the people around you, the changes you're making in a year are the changes that most people would take 5 years to make. Like Shaan said this, he's like, I'm about to give you an MBA in 8 weeks. So imagine getting an MBA in business in 8 weeks, collapsing decades into days, something that we say, making your yearly income monthly and your monthly income weekly and your weekly income daily. Imagine really doing that and becoming the person that can actually do that. You are unrecognizable to the very people that supported you when you got started in less than 6 months. Unrecognizable. And that is a very interesting reality of business.
Hey guys, so we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, more on this topic. Stay tuned.
I tell people all the time, I say coaching is a future-focused, goal and action-oriented process. Emphasis on action and emphasis on process. We're going to show you how to not just coach like a leader, but to create your organization with a coaching culture. And then create your community of high-level clients who need and respect your ability to coach them on a high level. So again, this is not consultation. Consultation is being the expert. You do not have to be the expert in a vertical to be a coach in that vertical. What you do have to do is ask open-ended questions. What you do have to do is have active listening. Listen, when you get done with this course, you're going to be a master coach, a master executive coach. You can use this in whatever vertical you want to. If you want to do life coaching, this will help you. If you want to coach clients, coach teachers, coach students, this will help you. If you want to be an evidence-based executive coach and only work with professionals, that's what this program is going to allow you to do. But it's also going to help you to add a 0 to the back of your number because you will know what you're doing. This is not hype. This is not motivation. This is evidence-based. This is factual-based, data-based, driven by science, and exalted by performance. So when you're young, mommy tells you to play nice. Play nice, Timmy. Let all of the other kids play too. But in business, it's not about playing nice. In business, it's about winning. It's about adding multiple zeros to your revenue. Now, of course, your staff wins. And when you win, other people win. However, when it comes to competition, you absolutely must dominate. You can't play for participation, and you can't play just to get along or just to get by because business is serious. Business will help you to change the world or the world will change you. Your people will either win or your people will lose based on your level of leadership, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how much you know about dominating.
All right, guys. So welcome back. Listen, if you have any comments, please put them in the chat. Put them somewhere where we can see them. Bobby, let's get a few. I see one comment. Let me just take it. Let's just see what it says. All right. So this is by Lisa. So Lisa says, 3 whole months. I wish this is the most challenging journey I have ever had, and it really does feel long. Okay, so I'm guessing that Lisa just sort of transitioned and she's now becoming an entrepreneur. They let me know if I'm right, Lisa, and she's saying that it is the most challenging journey that I've ever had, and it really does feel long. Yes, yes, it does. Yes, it does, and it definitely is long. Like to me, Bobby, like entrepreneurship is like a lifelong thing. Does one ever like become an entrepreneur and then go back? Does that ever happen? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it does happen. But listen, if you're in 3 months, Lisa, just stay the course. Like just don't quit. Just don't quit. And whatever struggle you're going through right now, we all went through it. Like everybody goes through it. I can tell you that. As an entrepreneur, you're gonna be confused. You're gonna feel lonely. You're gonna feel like nobody understands you. Especially if you're a visionary, you'll have a lot of ideas that you just can't really put into words. You don't know who your client is. You don't know about sales. The way that you used to make money is not the way that you make money right now. Like there's so many things that are just different about it, but you just have to stay the course.
Yeah. And as I pass you, Junior, one thing that I think we should do as entrepreneurial parents, those that have children, is to teach our kids how to be entrepreneurial just as well as the school system teaches them to be employees. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with employees. I'm saying that the school system's going to teach them that. All right, let the school system do its job. What we can do, I think, as parents is definitely give them another perspective if we have the skill set, and as entrepreneurs, we do, especially if we're making money. So I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching our kids how to do that so that when they're at that stage where they're ready to leave the workforce, they have all the skills that they need to do so, almost like as if they're bilingual. And if they like to stay in the workforce, by all means, if they never go to the workforce at all, they had that option because mommy or daddy took the lead, figured it out, and was able to teach them what they needed to know.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something that I will be doing for sure.
Mhm.
Like my as soon as my son can talk, he will have a business. As soon as he could talk, he could pronounce his words correctly. He will have a business, and he will be earning his money. My goal, Bobby, is to have my son turn 18, and all of the money that he had, he had to work for all of it. Like he earned it because he's been making money from the time he's like 5 years old.
Mhm.
So when he does get the money, it's like I didn't give you money. This is not daddy's money. This is money that you earned. You earn this money because you've been an entrepreneur ever since you were a kid. So this is legit like your money.
That's right.
So that's something I definitely agree with you on. And we know there's nothing like job security. Like everybody should know that. If COVID didn't teach you that, then I don't know what else will. But there's no such thing as job security. I believe that everyone, not everyone, but most people, if you have the makeup of an entrepreneur, if you feel like you can do that. And by the way, there's entrepreneurs as well. You don't have to be just an entrepreneur. There's also something called an entrepreneur where you can be an sort of like an entrepreneur but in somebody else's business. So there is that concept as well. But in other words, you need to have some kind of entrepreneurial bone in you to really compete in the world today. Because anything could happen. Anything could happen. But as long as you have like those core skills, Bobby, like as long as you can sell. So let's say the world reset. The world reset tomorrow. You're not who you were, or we're not doing breakfast with the brand. And now we have to find jobs, and everybody's sort of all about the place, and the whole economy is sort of starting off again. If you can sell, you'll be fine. Even if there's like no electricity, let's say there's no electricity, no internet, if you can sell, you can eat. Like they're just like certain core skills I believe everybody should have. The skill of being able to communicate and speak, the skill of being able to sell, critical thinking, accurate thinking, emotional intelligence, like just certain things that you just have to have just to be able to survive and to compete, right? And to position you and your family in the best possible path and light to have a great life experience. Like to me, that's just something that's something I'll definitely be passing on to my kids.
Yeah, man. And another thing that I think people don't understand when they're looking at entrepreneurship is how important paid relationships are. So when they're looking at entrepreneurship from the outside, they think that networking, what do they say? Your network is your net worth. That's true. That's true. However, you have to pay to be in certain networks. And I think that's another thing that just catches people off guard is how much it costs to learn how to win. I'll say that again. How much it costs to learn how to win. So here's the thing. It's like gatekeepers is what we call them. So imagine you had an operation. This operation was working beautifully. You were making, say, $1 million a day. Like literally, you're making $1 million a day. You're doing great. Now, let's say you got this system. Now, it's not very hard to do what you're doing. Okay? Anybody can do it. But it took you 20 years to build this program, to build this system. Now, after 20 years of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, lost loved ones, lost relationships, in and out of like just bad mental spaces, but you just kept going. 20 years later, you've got this phenomenal business earning $1 million a day. You could teach someone how to do this in 8 weeks, and they could be making their own $100,000 a day in less than 6 months. I'm creating something for you guys. So you got this $1 million business, $1 million or $1 million a day. You could teach someone how to do it in 8 weeks, and they could be making 6 figures daily in less, say, 6 months. Would you give them that information for free? Probably not. Why not?
Why?
Because it
It
costs you
costs you
20 years
20 years.
to accumulate that. And during that process of accumulation, you became the person you needed to be in order to sustain that level of productivity and value production. So what does this mean? If you were to give all of this wisdom, insights, and whatnot to someone that has not made an investment to acquire those skills, have not put the time in to sustain that production, they're likely not going to be able to do it. So what does that mean? They destroy the system. It's almost like putting a 12-year-old behind the wheel of a Ferrari. Like, what sense does it make? Just because you can drive it and you have all the ability to buy another one, it doesn't mean you put a 12-year-old inside of it, tell them to have at it. And that's one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs just struggle with when they're making the transition, because they're looking for a shortcut. They're looking for a wormhole, like a teleportation portal that's going to take them from the 9 to 5 workforce where they don't know anything about business into a world where they're making $1 million a year and all they had to do was open an LLC. That world does not exist. And that's the version of what it looks like versus what it is. What it looks like is I quit my job, I built $1 million business, and you can do the same thing. Buy my program, I'll show you how. That's what it looks like. That's what people want it to be. But what it really is like you're going to make an investment today. And the degree to which you honor your investment, time, money, and effort, is going to determine the return on your investment. If you manage your time properly, you invest big, and you apply yourself in the form of effort and energy, you will get a massive return. And the speed of your results is based on the speed of your implementation, your ability to execute on what you're learning. And the more you do it and the more consistent you are, the more likely you will be able to sustain the results. And that is one of the things that I think is very interesting about this as well, because I call it the power of proximity. When you are getting in a community or when you're networking with someone and you're paying to network, what you're really paying for is what I call Mona Lisa detail. In other words, before I pass it to Junior, the reason I call it Mona Lisa detail is because it's all about proximity. if I am looking at a Mona Lisa from across the room and I can see it clearly, but I can't really see the fine details, I might be able to replicate the silhouette. I might be able to get a couple of the shapes and tones right. But it's not going to look like a real Mona Lisa. It's just going to be what I could put together with what I can see. But the closer I get to that Mona Lisa in proximity, the less ground that I have between me and the Mona Lisa. If I'm right up on it, guess what? My detail is going to be so much cleaner. My tones are going to be so much more accurate. My ability to actually get the proportions right are going to be so much better. So proximity is really a matter of getting the details right. And the last thing I'll say on this is the dollars are in the details. All the money is in the detail. And most people try to build a business without a fine-tuned approach. Rather, they create a Frankenstein and hope it will produce what a systematic, well-oiled, detailed machine produces, and they just get different outcomes because they're operating two different systems.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned there I believe that the dollar in the details. I'm all about details. I'm all about doing the right thing in the right way. So I'm all about that. So I definitely believe that the deeper you go, the higher you climb. It's like I tell people inside the leverage, the tallest buildings have the deepest foundations, and the deepest foundations are all made from detail. So if you're a copywriter, how much detail do you know? Like how detailed is your writing? If you're a sales professional, how detailed is your presentation? If you're a coach, how detailed is your method? If you're a speaker, how detailed is your story? Like it's all in the details. Any way that you spin it, it's always all in the detail. Okay. So definitely believe in that. Let's get Tia's comment. Let's just read this. So she says, um, I have been on this journey since 2016, and each phase and stage has grown me in ways I never imagined. Yet I could never go back to work alone. Building the business has been the hardest, most rewarding experience I ever had. And although it's rough, it's simply the best thing I've ever decided for my life. All right. I'll be interested to know why. Put why, Tia. Put why. I just want to highlight a point. Just put why is that. Like, why is it like the best thing that you've ever done in your life? She says, yes, there's a cost to join a network and it costs to attend events, to get in the room, to network, a price that is worth it all to grow. So there's another perspective on that. If you want to make let's say $1 million a year, and let's say right now you make 50K. So if you're making 50K a year, your goal is to make 1 million a year. Some people will say, well, okay, it cost me $30,000 to join a network. Okay. But the actual cost, like the way that elite performers look at it, they look at it as it's costing me $950,000 not to join the network. So if you could join a network to learn how to make $1 million a year, okay, and you don't do it, it's costing you the rest of the money that you don't have. If you only have 50K and you want to make 1 million, it means that the investment that you're not making is literally costing you. There's something called a cost of inaction. There's the cost of investment, which may be like 30K, okay? But then you also have the cost of inaction, which is the cost that you incur from not getting the transformation. And that's sort of the way that I look at it. I look at it, okay, what is it costing me not to do this? What is it costing me, not to attend the event, not to get into the room, not to be dedicated, not to be disciplined, not to go all the way in? Because oftentimes, Bobby, the cost of inaction is way, way, way more than the cost of investment.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing that I think is just interesting about what entrepreneurship looks like and what it is the money side of it. So a lot of people are bootstrapping because that's all they know. right? So when I say bootstrapping, I mean they're taking the money that they have and they're trying to flip that money. Now, there's nothing wrong with bootstrapping, but in most cases, you need about 10K to put together a basic operation. I'm not saying you need 10K to get started. Like, you don't need 10K to start reading books or to get a course. I'm saying if you're looking to put together the basic operation, the average business can get started for 10K. That's going to include systems, legal, accountants, and all the just basic startup costs. Now, if more entrepreneurs understood finance, I think a lot more of them would transition a lot smoother. But because they don't understand finance, they don't understand investing, and they're just thinking cash is because they're scared of debt. And they're scared of debt because our society, at least in the US, traumatizes you with debt by the age of 21. Like, you can usually get a credit card by 18, and by 20, you've probably maxed out a credit card in your life in the US. And then at 21, 22, 23, you're working to pay that money off, and you just see the interest climbing, climbing, climbing. Or you went to college and you took out a huge school loan, and the loan just came out of deferment, and it's hitting you, bum, 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 bum. And it's just like you are traumatized. And then when it goes to borrow money again, they're just like, I'll never borrow. But here's the funny thing. They won't borrow money to build a business, but they'll borrow money to buy a car. They won't borrow money to set themselves free, but they'll borrow money to give their kid the birthday of a lifetime, to take their family on a trip out of the country. And that's all the byproduct of the way we're trained to think. And we're trained to be consumers and not investors, because the more we buy, the more the people that are selling get rich. The faster they get rich and the more money they have. The less we buy and the more we invest, the more money that comes to us. So it makes very little sense for the system to teach people to invest rather than teach people to buy. So that's one thing that I would also say is that what it looks like on the outside is that entrepreneurs are taking their cash or like a savings account or like the money they're making from their business, and they are flipping that money. No, that's rarely happening. What's actually happening is they're taking their money and they're taking out loans, or they're taking credit. They're getting their hands on capital, and they're taking all of that money and they're throwing it into their business. And then they're flipping all of that money simultaneously to make their money back in cash that they invested. We call that equity, our own money. And they're flipping it in the amount of money that they borrowed, and they're paying the interest on the money they borrowed. That's real business. But a lot of people don't understand that finance piece, which is what's costing them their launch. So people are like, I'm trying to start a business up. But and I'll transfer to Junior here, but I studied finance and economics. And my overarching degree is entrepreneurship. And the reason I share this with you guys is because we say launch a business. The reason we say launch a business is because we treat a business like NASA treats a rocket ship. And what we do is we say that you have the boosters. The boosters is your capital. The rocket is your idea. The stratosphere, or like out of orbit, that is what we call critical mass. So what we're actually saying as entrepreneurs that actually studied entrepreneurship, what we're saying is that I am going to spend a lot of gasoline or fuel on launching, meaning I'm going to get a rocket, and then I'm going to attach as much money to this idea as humanly possible. And I'm going to burn ferocious amounts of money fast. That's exactly what a rocket ship does. It's sitting and then it's burning tons of energy. And then boom, it shoots up. And once it shoots up, it's got to keep on thrusting. And then boom, the thrusters fall off. And then the jets kick in. Once the jets kick in, that's what we call monthly reoccurring revenue. So before you have monthly reoccurring revenue, you've got these thrusters, you've got the investment. Once you get the monthly recurring revenue, you've got the thrusters. Once you get out of orbit and you're no longer being pulled down by the gravitational pull of the earth, so to speak, you are out of space. And once you're out of space, you have a sustainable business. So that's why we call it launching a business, because that's the idea. The idea is to treat it much like a rocket. So that didn't just come out of nowhere. That's an actual reason for saying it that way. So I just wanted to share that with you, because when you understand that, you can better understand why it takes debt to scale a business.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people that say debt is bad, but we know there's good debt and then there's bad debt. So take and this is actually in the book. What is the name of that book again, Bobby? I think it's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the name of the book. So it says that if you take money to basically invest, then that is a good debt. But if you borrow money to spend, like to buy clothes, to buy a phone, to buy something that doesn't bring any money back, then that's pretty much a bad debt, right? So while you were talking, I wrote down build a system. So what is a system? A system is something that guarantees results. A system is scalable. A system guarantees quality. A system guarantees reproducible results. So you put money in the system. You put money or you put gasoline on the system, which is what Bobby's talking about. Like the system is the rocket, okay? And then you put the gasoline in the rocket, all right? Or you put the fuel in the rocket to blast it off outer space. So the fuel is the capital. Now, we're gonna get into this like in another show, but basically, as an entrepreneur, my belief is that you're building a system. You're in charge of building a system
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily require you to be there for it to work. And then by putting in the fuel, by putting in the capital, like Bobby would say, you're able to take that system out of orbit and launch it and have it sort of recreate results.
Yeah,
Okay. And that is critical mass.
that's
All right.
right.
So um let me just take this last comment, Bobby, and then if you have anything that you'd like to say, I think we're actually close to the top of the hour, aren't we?
Yeah, about 5 minutes. So we normally are able to get two or three more statements in. Well, 4 minutes now. So maybe two statements in.
Yeah. Let's see what Tia says. So Tia says it's no safety net yet. It's the safest way to make a living once you can become consistent in growing and developing consistent growth, and you actually see individuals' life change for the better. I have seen many in the beginning of growth, and to see them now makes it all worth it. It's better than any job ever, although we work our jobs while we build to get out of the job. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I will also say, like, there's nothing wrong with a job, by the way. There's nothing wrong with getting a job and, just loving your job. Nothing wrong with that. And by the way, if you are like the top of your industry, and you know what's funny, Tia, when you become really good at the job, you run the job like a business. You become an entrepreneur when you become good at the job. So now you build a brand inside the company. It's almost like there are certain let's say like newscasters. There are very famous newscasters, right? They used to be on different television networks like CNN, Fox, etc., etc. And then once they leave, in fact, CNN recently fired one person. I won't say the name, but if you know, then you know. And then he built his own website. He built his own brand. But he already people already knew who he was, Bobby, and now he's making more numbers than CNN, the company. Like CNN was holding him back.
Yeah,
He has better numbers than CNN, So, but he used to work for them as an employee. They let him go, and because he had a powerful brand, he's crushing them, absolutely crushing them, and all of cable television too. So there is that part as well.
yeah,
At the end of the day, I guess whether you're an employee or whether you're an entrepreneur, like it's never a bad thing to just build your brand, and that's what we're all about.
yeah. My last words for the audience would be this, and write this down, guys. Write this down. Junior didn't say it this morning, so I'm gonna say it for you. What's written is retained. He normally reminds you guys, right? What's written is retained. So write this down. One of the primary reasons for entrepreneurship is to go from trading time for money to trading money for money. Now, what does that mean? That means the only reason that most people build businesses is so that they no longer have to trade their time for money. What they're saying to themselves is that if I build this business well enough for it to produce money and me not have to work in the business in order for it to produce the money, then I have set myself free from the burden of working for money. If that's not the mindset, then that's usually why most people quit or make the wrong investments, because they spend their money thinking they have a job. You're still working for yourself and you're still working for money. Real entrepreneurs do not. Okay, I won't say real entrepreneurs. I will say the type of entrepreneurs that I have grown to respect understand that this is about setting yourself free, your family free, and the next generation free from working for money. And the business does that by creating a system, and then the system creates equity. And I'm gonna stop there. It's the top of the hour. But again, me and Junior said we'll talk about this in more detail, but I hope you guys wrote that down. It's going from trading time for money to trading money for money. If you don't have money that you can invest to make more money, then you have every good reason, in my opinion, to be building a business.
All right, guys. So we've come to the end of the show. We will be back tomorrow, same place, same time. Have a phenomenal day. And of course, we have an announcement coming tomorrow. There's actually like an event closer towards the end of the month, but we'll be giving you some more information about that. So stay tuned. You'll see us tomorrow. Have a phenomenal day and let's grow.
Bro.